The actual number, according to Uyghur census, is way over 20 million. And if I just give a little bit of history, you probably have heard of ancient Silk Road, where Marco Polo went long time ago. So East Turkestan has been a prominent center of commerce for more than 2,000 years. The picture on the right is one of the Uyghur kings from 744 to 1335 during that period, the empire, the Uyghur Empire from that period. He's one of the kings from then. And Manchus invaded before China, before the Chinese Nationalistic Republic and the communist government. In 1876, the Manchus first invaded and renamed Xinjiang, which means new territory. Xin means new in Chinese, Jiang means territory. And we don't like to use that because it's a derogatory term for us. So we always use East Turkestan as our ancestors fought twice and gained independence. But since the October 1949, Chinese Communist Party has been occupied. Our homeland is rich in natural resources. China's 1/3 of natural gas and oil reserves and 40% of the coal reserves are coming from our homeland, and also precious metals and minerals as uranium, gold, jade, and fossil fuel reserves. China's 84% of cotton output, China's export cotton, 84% of China's cotton export is come from our homeland. The current situation is because of China's racism and the cutting edge technology, especially since 2008 Olympics, when China started to make a sharp U-turn towards the totalitarianism. The entire region is basically being a police state. The Chinese government has been demonizing the Uyghur culture and the ethnic identity, and the basically telling the world that the Uyghur people are radicalized Muslims, ever since the 9/11 tragedy in the United States. China has been using war on terror very effectively. With that, the punishment has been cultural and collective. China basically populated concentration camps with about 3 million innocent people. And even people just living normal, regular lives like you and me, they are going through checkpoints on every corner, and the GPS tracking devices on every vehicle, QR scanning codes on every homes to monitor and the basically check the activities of the Uyghurs. If you look at these pictures, you feel like the area is a war zone, but this is the reality for 20 million people, more than 20 million people. The Chinese government has been denying the existence of the camps at the beginning. After we have been crying out loud, and so many news reports and also experts showing the satellite images, China realized they couldn't deny anymore. Finally, in August 2018, they came back and said those are re-education camps. 2 months later, they changed the narrative and said those are vocational training centers. But in reality, with the watchtowers, armed guards, barbed wire, and the crematorias being built next to the concentration camps, people are facing mental and the physical torture. If we remember what happened in the history, last time the world saw concentration camps and the crematorias are together, we all know what we call that. So basically, history is reporting itself today. Some of the pictures from the camps, and those are the people being forced to indoctrinate with communist philosophy and the forsaking their ethnic identity and their religion. If you look at those faces, they are just becoming numbers now, one of the 3 million, but those are university presidents, professors, doctors, famous singers, actors, very successful businessmen. These kind of people, they do not need.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Okay. Well, that's what I mean by a totalitarian regime. There was a news report recently, China is hacking Zoom, taking over Zoom. There we go, we had the first experience here. So what you have saw is how the government controls the free speech. So let's just continue from where we left out and share my screen. So these people on the screen are the former detainees, and they have been testifying. They were released only because either they are a country, they are citizens of other countries, or they're married to foreign citizens. Why all this happening? It's because China's ambition to the world domination, Xi Jinping's blueprint for the world domination called Belt and Road Initiative. Basically, this was built, China's new, this also called New Silk Road. China's New Silk Road plan is basically causing a destruction in our homeland, and China is conducting genocide of the people as the final solution, what the Nazi Germany did in World War II. If you look at, I don't know if you can see my cursor here, this is the area of my homeland, East Turkestan. China's Belt and Road Initiative is 4 important legs, goes through our area. Basically, our homeland is a gateway to Central Asia, to Europe, to Africa, to Middle East. The Belt and Road Initiative put our homeland as an epicenter of Xi Jinping's signature projects, basically success or the failure of this project. Therefore, the Chinese government is starting to build those concentration camps shortly after his Xi Jinping's announcement of the Belt and Road Initiative. What is Belt and Road Initiative? Belt and Road Initiative covers over 700 projects, $4 to $8 trillion investments, building basically both on the land roads and the maritime in the regions of Asia, Southeast Asia, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and the Middle East, Turkey, Caucasian countries, some of the Europe, and even it goes as far as, from this picture you see, as far as New Zealand and Australia are in their plan as well. And because of that, Xi Jinping announced his Belt and Road Initiative in 2013. First concentration camp started to build in 2014, a year later, in Lopnur in the southern part of East Turkestan, under the labels of Strike Hard campaign. If you look at the picture on the right, the picture on the top, July 15th, it was a completely vacant land in the little area called Dabancheng. And now in April 2018, it has a massive, huge concentration camp was being built. It's next to Urumqi. Actually, the size of this camp is bigger than the town Dabancheng itself. And those are some of the satellite images. If you look at the ones on the top, size in 2016, and the under the bottom, it shows how largely expanded in 2018. Because China is getting away with the false narratives, getting away with this genocide of the Uyghur people in front of the entire world population. The whole world is muted basically against such a blatant human rights violations. So China is just to keep building, keep expanding. And this is one of the news article from Australian news agency, Australian Broadcasting Corporation, back in 2018. You see some of the spots. They identified up to 1,200 camps, concentration camps in the area. So what kind of things get people into the camps? Having a beard, basically having a facial, beard and a mustache, facial hair for the men, speaking your native language. If you refuse to smoke in public or ask somebody not to smoke or not to drink, these are the kind of things the Chinese government is calling illegal Islamic activities. These are the kind of things the Chinese government is saying the radicalized Islamic extremists. Wearing a t-shirt with Arabic lettering, our Uyghur language is written in Arabic scripts. Basically, if you have a t-shirt with saying, name of your town or anything, that can be the reason. Having a WhatsApp on your phone, or traveling in a Central Asian or Turkey or Muslim majority countries, that can get you into the camps as well. So Chinese government has been painting the so-called vocational training centers as people are happy studying Mandarin Chinese and they are learning how to get technical jobs, and they're jumping around and they're playing sports. Remind you something, back in the Holocaust, how when the world started to pay a little bit of attention and they sent people to check it out, those people were playing soccer and they're singing, the similarity. But what the Chinese government is hiding is, according to AFP reporter, she went through a Chinese document, she reads and speaks Chinese, for one concentration camp in a hotel, there was a purchase order purchasing, you see that on the screen, that many basically teasers and the police batons, handcuffs, and the pepper sprays. What kind of education place needs equipments like that? And those are the a place, this is a picture in Qatar, a place like in New York's Times Square. The one on the left was just several years ago. People used to come there every day during the day. They come over right after sunrise, and then they trade and they sell whatever they have, and they sit and they enjoy their time and have dinner, visit each other, and then go back after sunset. So during the sunlight, you never see the place without crowded Uyghur people. Look at the one on the right now. This is recent. So basically, what happened to all these people make you think. And also, we have been told, starting from the end of 2016, the Chinese government was forcing people to, mandatory people to give DNA samples. We were not sure what was that for. And those are the some of the news reports that airport in Kashgar is where majority is like the Uyghur population. They have a special dedicated line for passengers carrying human organ transportation. Basically, when they are carrying human organs, they have a special line that they go through. So that tells you how much the organs are being transported out of Kashgar airport. But very sadly, recent news articles from last week on Washington Times actually reported, according to Bill Gertz, China has been doing a research and they're trying to build the biological weapons against the Uyghurs and the Tibetans. So that's probably another reason why they were forced to collecting DNA samples of the Uyghur people. And Chinese government is also forcing the Uyghur women to marry Han Chinese as a forced assimilation. The girls nor their families cannot refuse such a forced marriage, because if they do, then they are being labeled as Islamic extremists. Didn't want the Muslim girl marry non-Muslim or atheist Han Chinese. If a woman cannot choose who she wants to marry, if a woman cannot say no to the marriage that she doesn't want to, I call that being raped, the Uyghur woman being raped on the name of marriage. Look at these girls' faces in their wedding day. The wedding is supposed to be the happiest time in the girls' lives. Look at their face. They look like they're attending their funeral. And also what they call Islamic extremism and the illegal Islamic activities is wearing long tunics. Anything that covers your back is supposed to be illegal Islamic clothing. So on the street, they are being humiliated by getting their shirts cut by the government officials. And recently, the Chinese media reported 1.1 million Han Chinese cadres, government officials, deployed to Uyghur homes to live with them, live inside of their houses. Just imagine, you have uninvited people that you don't know coming into your house to stay with you, to eat with you, to sleep with you in your house. What is that? Have you ever heard of something like that happen in recent history? Basically, people coming in and invading their own private place to make Uyghur people to serve them. And also, most of the Uyghur men are taken to the concentration camps. The Uyghur women are facing sexual abuse. I call this government-sponsored mass rape. Those Uyghur women are subject to sexual abuse. I want to play this very short video for you. There are the guy smiling on the left is Han Chinese, and the guy next to him and the next to him. 3 Chinese men are sharing a bed, sleeping area with an Uyghur woman while her husband is taken to concentration camp. That woman is Uyghur, and she's got a little young baby next to her. And this is a situation for 1.1 million families. The Uyghur children, if you look at these faces, they were living like a normal children, like anywhere else. But look at them now. Look at their faces. Look at the way they were being dressed. And the one on the right bottom, the picture, that is one of the state-run orphanages in the name of kindergartner, but they are being locked up inside of those places. They are not be able to communicate with their families. The state media reported, there are some news reports, over 500,000 Uyghur kids are taken to those government-run, state-run orphanages. After the news reports came up and the millions of Uyghurs are in concentration camps, there were also news reports about the Uyghurs are being transported to China proper. We were not sure why. We thought Chinese government was trying to hide the numbers of the detainees in the camps, but only find out that it's not those Uyghurs who are only dispersed to China proper to hide the numbers, but they were also being used as slaves. In December, if you look at the time here, December 9th, 2019, this guy is the governor in Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, so-called Shohet Zakir. He announced to the world, there were massive news coverage of so-called the vocational training center educators, the Uyghurs are being graduated. But to graduate to where? Our family members still disappeared. We still didn't know anything about our family members. We had no information. So the Uyghurs in abroad, we started a campaign, still no info, hashtag still no info. And everybody was saying, you know, where's my sister, where's my mother, where's my family members? All the Uyghurs in diaspora coming out and asking if they are graduated, then where are they? The Chinese Global Times attacked me by name. Actually, here it says Rushan Abbas, a so-called Campaign for Uyghurs leader. They're stealing. They said that they first stole some Uyghurs' photos and information, claimed these people are missing relatives. Well, what I have been holding is not somebody else's relative's picture. It's my sister's picture I was holding, and I was asking. Li Jianchao is a spokesperson for China's foreign ministry. He attacked me on his Twitter, basically calling me working for CIA, or, you know, just trying to discredit me. And then a couple months later, March 1st, Australian think tank research institute, SP, Australian Strategic Policy Institute, released a very detailed document about those Uyghurs being transferred from the camps to forced labor facilities. Basically, they became slaves. What's hurting and also really surprising is all these brand names. 83 names are complicit with such as slavery, such forced labor. When my sister was taken, when I was looking for my sister, when I was trying to get information of my sister, I had no idea someday I will find out that she might be working in a supply chain of one of these, the world brand big names as a slave labor, basically. So many companies are complicit with China's recent atrocity and complicit with the slavery. And now we all know what's happening. We are all at home and working from home because of, again, the China's totalitarian reaction to this virus from Wuhan. Because of China, how they handle by disinformation or punishing the whistleblowers, or basically misinform the public or keep quiet policy, created this virus from Wuhan, a global pandemic today. While China is playing victim, while China is trying to make a profit out of the world's misfortune reality today, they are rapidly moving the Uyghurs out of the region to Chinese provinces to work in the factories while Chinese people are staying home from virus. Imagine right now in New York or California or in many others epicenter states are asking people to stay home. And imagine one ethnic nationality is being targeted and taken to those areas to work in the factories. And that's what's happening in front of the entire world's watch. And China calls them, the reason they are transporting those Uyghurs is because they want them to get jobs. Well, at the same time, Chinese government is transferring thousands of Chinese people, Han Chinese, to East Turkestan, to our homeland, offering them jobs, housing, land, and also giving them money. Just a couple weeks ago, May 2nd, if you can see here, May 2nd, South China Morning Post just released a report, basically. And using this COVID-19 outbreak, the Chinese government is planning to move about 1 million Uyghurs out from the region to 19 Chinese provinces and the municipalities. Basically, when the whole world is concentrating on what's happening to this pandemic that China created, China is using this as an opportunity. So basically, they used the concentration camps to kill 4 birds with 1 stone. Number one, forcing Uyghurs out of their houses and the lands and vacating the land for Belt and Road Initiative and also for the Han Chinese migrants. 2 is dislocating the Uyghurs from their homes, and then they're making the Uyghur women to basically marry Han Chinese. If you recall, past 40 years, China has been conducting the implementing one-child policy. And the Chinese government did not allow Chinese girls, female babies to be born. So there's a huge ratio messed up in between male and the females today. And China is using Uyghur girls for this as a solution. 3, basically, Chinese government is using these people in the camps as slaves on production, making profit out of modern day slavery. Number 4, with the DNA samples, China is basically basically using those camps as a organ farm, organ harvesting farms. And the China is getting away with this in front of entire world population. And my sister, she was not famous. She's not famous. She's not outspoken person. She retired in an early age because of the health reasons. And now she's there because of me. She became the victim for my activities here in America as an American citizen. So basically, my question is, who is benefiting from my sister's false labor? Who is complicit with China making a medical doctor a slave labor, basically? So will we be able to hold the vow never again that the world promised after the World War II? Or are we going to just sadly watch the repeat of the Munich Pact, 1983 Munich Pact, while all the countries around the world basically invested or continue to do business with Nazi Germany in the name of economic interest? Right now, the millions of Uyghurs are becoming collateral damage for the trade and the economy. And there are some action items, what you can do, and I think I'm going to finish it here to leave enough time to have some questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If anybody has a question, could you raise your hand or post something in the chat so that I can see the hands that are up. Let's go to Michelle. You're unmuted, Michelle. Now you're unmuted, sorry.
Thank you so much for that presentation. I am wondering, as far as the companies that I know myself, I was supporting unknowingly, and I'm wondering, is there a coordinated campaign to, I'm just curious, like, as far as a couple or a few of us writing to one or more of those companies, I don't see that doing much, but what is being done already or what could be done so that there would be more of a difference made?
Thank you so much. There are a couple ways to help us. One is there is a Global Magnitsky Act, which is a law that is already in place, and that is actually targeted sanctioning the human rights violators, the government officials who are responsible for violations of the human rights. So if you can write or call your representatives to implement the Global Magnitsky Act against the Chinese government officials. And also, a couple months ago in early March, I testified at the front of CECC, which is a Congressional Executive Committee on China, and the Congressman McGovern and Senator Rubio and a few other congressmen and the senators actually introduced a bipartisan and the bicameral legislation to address the concern of those goods making it to U.S. markets, to check to make sure that the company's supply chains are not using Uyghurs. So you can also ask your representatives to support that. Right now we have something like 70 congressmen co-sponsored that, so we really need more people signing that.
What was the name of that again?
I have to get back to you on that. I think it's the Chinese and the Forced Labor Supply Chain Act, or I don't remember exactly the words, but I'll make sure that I will get you that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a question from Dara. I'm going to unmute her and let her ask her question directly.
Hi, hi, my name's Dara. By the way, I'm the program manager for Campaign for Uyghurs. So I work with Rushan. It was actually just a question that I saw at the beginning of the chat. So it's not my question, it's by Matthew Lafontaine. So maybe if he can take away ask his question then. Otherwise, I mean, I can answer it technically. The question is, the Chinese government went on the defensive and they gave several tours of the re-education facilities. Do you know what happened to these people? So while China did have this propaganda campaign and did bring in people to have a look at the facilities and, kind of make them look like they're vocational training centers, and of course they hid the fact that it's a concentration camp, the people weren't released. I mean, they said that they're released, but as you can see, there's still, thousands upon thousands of Uyghurs that are still demanding the freedom of their, relatives. They do, like Rushan mentioned in the presentation, they do release some individuals, based on whether they're citizens of countries. So maybe the government, for instance, if you hold Pakistani citizenship, Egyptian citizenships, those specific governments can pressure China and, vouch for them and then demand their release, which works, not always, but it works. But then you have those people who, for instance, have a, Chinese passport and don't have that, another foreign government vouching for them. So that's sort of where we come in to vouch for them and be the voice for the voiceless. So there's a lot of propaganda that China's putting out right now. They're, waging a massive propaganda campaign, especially now on social media. That's why campaign for Uyghurs, and we've all been so, present on social media and tried to put out as much available information, true information that's backed by facts. If you want more information, we have an entire list. Julie, I believe, already emailed some links and information that we've compiled. You're free to look at the real information. So I just urge you to not rely on what's coming out of China, whether that be, oh, there's a release of some people. Yeah, they may be releasing, but not, there's still millions. Imagine 3 million people are stuck in concentration camps in the 21st century. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Maybe, Rushan can add something if she... Great.
Let's go to Gary. Gary, I unmuted you.
Thanks. This has been going on a very, very long time. If you remember when Tibet was taken over by the Chinese, they did the same thing. They shipped in many men. They tried to suppress local culture. They tried to take it all over, many incentives to move there. This went on for 30 years and still going on in Tibet. A few years back at the Humphrey Institute, there was a visitor from Vietnam. Her name was Han Nguyen. She was attorney trained. She's back in Vietnam, but she's told me that it's happening in a kinder way in Vietnam. In other words, China is setting up economic zones. They want to run everything by themselves. They are shipping in men to have wives and children, which they thought they couldn't get if they stayed in China. And they're totally trying to take over and totally control Vietnam as a vassal state. She said it got so bad that the Vietnamese would prefer Americans to be muzzling in on them instead of the Chinese. And you may recall a few years ago, the Vietnamese actually invited America to come back and send their ships to Cam Ranh Bay for repair, which is amazing considering the whole Vietnam War. So it's been going on a long time with China.
That is a great point, actually. Yes, you are right. With Tibetans and the Falun Gong practitioners and the Uyghurs and also any people who believes any kind of faith, and not only the Uyghurs are Muslim and we are facing this. China is basically waging a war on religion. Anybody who practice any kind of religion, the underground Christianities and Catholics and Buddhists, Falun Gong practitioners, and look at what's happening in Hong Kong, basically. So original thought and the religious beliefs are a danger to any communist country. But now with Xi Jinping, China is completely exercising however you describe the totalitarian ideology at the most, actually. And now any kind of individual freedom to choose for what we believe, how we believe, and why we believe, which is one of the major achievements of the Mandarin world, is now at the risk, on target. How China is getting away with all this? Just like what you mentioned, they are using that trap diplomacy, lending money to countries in Southeast Asia, Africa, and any kind of developing countries in third world countries, and basically building infrastructure projects, building airports and bridges and roads, knowing that they cannot pay back these kind of loans, and using that to influence their politics. Between that trade diplomacy, power of the Belt and Road Initiative, and the trade threats, they always bring up trade. And now, as the second largest donor at the United Nations, China is basically becoming the power able to strong arm the world. Just imagine what they are doing. They are using us as a pilot program, whatever they are setting up in our homeland, in East Turkestan, And now they're exporting that to other parts of the world. Basically, the social credit systems, surveillance systems, and the controlling, not only that, they are controlling America, United States. Where's Hollywood? Where's the mainstream media? Where's CNN? Why they are not reporting something like this? Because basically, the Chinese regime is bribing and leveraging some of the key politicians and some decision makers and the media and important business people around the world, and basically influencing how we act, how we think, how we do things. Unless if we wake up now and stop this, just look at the Uyghurs today, what you saw, the presentation you just viewed, and imagine what will be the future to the world, because China is changing the rule of law, changing the world order, changing what's going to happen in the future. So it's up to us basically to stop this here and to save everything we have worked so hard for past 50 years, past 100 years. Otherwise, our next generations will blame us for the world that we have left for them.
I want to go to one quick question. I'm going to unmute Debbie. She had a question for us. Debbie Seguin.
Yeah, Seguin. I actually got it answered by Dara, but I'm just concerned about Miss Abbas's safety and wanted to know what measures were taken to keep her safe.
Thank you. It's, you know, it's me, my life, and the just raising awareness to the world for world's future. We all, you know, we all die someday. If everybody think about their own interests, their own safety, who's going to do the right thing? I have nothing to lose now. They've got my sister. She is one and the only relative I have back home. I will do whatever I can. I quit my job. I am a full-time activist now. I quit my job in last September, year anniversary of my sister's abduction. And I'm just trying to just tell more people, just raise more voices. But thank you so much, Debbie.
Does anybody else have any questions? All right, let me turn it over back to Aaron to wrap us up.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Rushan. That's very excellent. I'm sorry my own connection kept cutting out. I don't know if that was noticeable to others, but sure was to me. I'm having internet problems today, apparently. But anyway, one thing, we did make a recording of this presentation, and we're wondering if we can share it, if that would be okay, or if there are any restrictions on how we should share it, anything like that.
No, you can share it as, you know, however you want. And we have a YouTube channel, usually post whatever we have to. So if I can get the copy, we will post on our YouTube channel too. But thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, sure. Okay. We did miss the beginning of the presentation because my internet connection cut out, but then Wilbur started recording it. So we got probably 95% of it. I guess if there are no more questions, I guess we're done. And thank you again, Rushan. And let us know if there are ways that we can contribute. You know, I know Amnesty has ongoing work on this issue. We'll put a link in the chat to an urgent action that we have right now. And so we want to continue following this and working on this. So let us know how we can help your organization too going forward.
Thank you. Our organization website, we have updated information. It's www.campaignforuyghurs.org. And
okay.
Also we have a really active social media presence. So you can follow us on the Twitter and the Instagram, just to keep up with the current information. But thank you so much, Aaron, and thank you, everybody.
I have two quick hand raises from Paul Bloom and Christy. I'll let Christy go first and then Paul, if you guys had something to add.
Let's see.
You're
Am I on?
unmuted, Christy.
Okay, thank you. One, thank you so much for your presentation and for really raising this important concern to us. And I guess I'm very concerned on security issues as well. And I realize that you are doing what you need to do, but I'm wondering how groups like this can actually be able to be extra supports and build support structures so that we can make sure that there is kind of a follow-up network that has your back and is watching as things are going forward. You know, we all saw and we're part of. I mean, I have gone through training with the ADL and others, you know, around the Zoom hacking and attacks. And this was the first time that I've ever seen it live or experienced it myself. So I guess I'm also wondering if you have ideas around that front. So both how we can really build support networks, and then the second is even in these Zoom, you know, challenges, that if you've had this experience before and what we might do to respond to that even. Thank you.
Thank you. We actually, to answer your second question, we stopped using Zoom. We moved to WebEx, and it's supposed to be more safe. So if you want to try WebEx, but I know some presentations are still using Zoom, some organizations, and let me get back to you on that, how they are doing, what they are doing to upgrade the security for Zoom. Because we just finished a training this morning with the UC Berkeley Human Rights Lab, Human Rights Council. So they use Zoom, and that was fine. So let me just check with them and get back to you. And then your first question about how to support. So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, because the media is so controlled, even when one of the NBA a player just said something about supporting Hong Kong protesters, the whole China and even NBA itself was trying to take our rights away from our First Amendment. I was supposed to be on the panel at Columbia University, but after the Chinese students, they protested, they canceled. This is America. If American university is doing that to take away our rights to speak, try to silence our voice, what do we expect from the rest of the world? So because of all this, still so many regular people don't know what's happening. Even if they do, like China has concentration camps, they've got some people there, that's about it. They don't know in what gravity, they don't know how this is being set up. They don't know what kind of disinformation China's feeding the world. So any kind of opportunity, if you have connections, seems like this is going to continue, stay home or not to be able to travel is going to continue until the end of the year we are looking at. So we have to keep doing our work on these kind of platform. So any other connections you have with interface organizations, or recently Julie is contacting the Holocaust museums from each state, other amnesty groups, any other organizations that we can give a presentation and raise awareness, let people know. More people know, and then we can build a coalition stronger among us. And I see Sonia and Latifa, the name, our Muslim sisters there. And salam alaikum. What hurts us the most is because China's playing this so well, and they didn't worry so much about the Western countries when they started this. They worried the most about our Muslim brothers and sisters. So that's where they concentrated the most. They tried to tell all the Muslim majority countries, including Turkey and other countries, they don't have any issue with Islam. it's about the radicalized Uyghurs. Well, today is Ramadan. The Muslim Uyghurs back home, they're forced to drink alcohol, forced to eat pork during Ramadan, during daytime. So I really appreciate if any kind of Muslim community that I can give a speech. I am disappointed. I reach out to some of the Islamic centers in the United States, in California, in Central California, in Fresno. There's a mosque. I reached out to them when I traveled there to visit my kids, and they just completely ignored me. They wouldn't even reply to my emails. So any kind of opportunity that you can provide us for us to just speak, that would be great.
Let's go to Paul. He had a question. Go ahead, Paul.
Just a suggestion that if you're going to post that video, like Gary said on the chat,
Yeah, we'll have to.
we're going to have to edit it. But I did have a communication with the DC office with Stephanie Malini, and she suggested they were looking at Microsoft team meetings, and I looked up a little bit about it. It looks okay. I don't know. They might be thinking of changing things. Aaron, well, you two anyway. Aaron and Wilbur. I could just I'll report this to Stephanie because she was asking me about the team meetings, and I'll copy Laura, for instance, our field organizer.
Two more things. Debbie had a question, and then also Julie wanted to add some comments. So go ahead. Let me get Debbie quick. Debbie, you're unmuted. Can you hear us?
Okay. Okay, you can't see me. Okay. I don't know what happened there, but anyway, I was wondering about what Michelle and I were working on stopping pipelines here in Minnesota and North Dakota, Standing Rock, and I was just wondering about pipelines and water and taking over your land and those kinds of issues too. It could be another connection because there's a lot of activists involved in supporting the environment. That's my question.
I couldn't hear very well. Was the question addressed to me, or? I couldn't hear very well. Was the question addressed to me, or? Wilbur, we cannot hear you. You're muted.
I'll have Debbie post her question to the chat and relay it. Julie, why don't you go ahead right now and
All right, thank you. I was just going to jump off the last comments, and we're so grateful for everyone's enthusiasm and willingness to support and ask more about what you can do. I just wanted to put it on everyone's radar that one of the things we have been doing is potentially looking to work with some of Amnesty's leadership to get some larger petitions started. Since Amnesty International, you guys have such a great reach and so many great networks. That's one of the things that we're working on with actually with Los Angeles and some of the leadership out there. So if that's something that your group is also interested in kind of helping us bring to Amnesty USA's leadership in terms of getting larger petitions started, whether it be with company boycotts, or we're actually looking at doing an initiative with the Olympics since China's supposed to host in 2022. If that is something that you're interested in partnering with us on, you can also get in touch with me and we'll keep you updated about that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I see Debbie's question about pipelines and the environment. A lot of people are concerned about the environment, pipelines, and indigenous people. That is a great idea. And you know, when I look at what's happening today, animals has rights. It's protected actually. Some of the precious plants or anything that is protected. We are human beings. We are facing eradication by the Chinese government because of chauvinistic racism by the Chinese government. And the the world is muted. Nobody's doing anything. Where are the values of the Western democracy? What happened to the humanity? So any kind of, any group, anything, in any industry you can think of to bring in, to do something. And that's how we build mass support to stop this evident evil. And as I mentioned, the world's future is basically up to us and this generation. So we are all responsible for what happens next. Thank you.
Sorry, can I say something very quick? I just remembered I am from Egypt, Roshan, and I remember that the Egyptian government was collaborated with the Chinese government, and then we have a big Islamic university in Egypt called Al-Azhar, and there are lots of Uyghur that came to study in this university, and the Egyptian government deported a lot of Uyghur students from Al-Azhar University, and then they handed them to the Chinese authority there. And we're a campaign in Egypt against doing this violation, because we're not supposed to deport them, because once we deport them, they're gonna put them in the concentration camps. Yeah, I just want to mention this.
Thank you so much. My husband is graduated from Al-Azhar University. He's one of the Uyghurs that you mentioned, but that was a while back, about 30 some years ago, 29 years ago. But last few years, 2 years ago, Egyptian government sent back hundreds, like 300-400 Uyghurs back to China while they are studying in Al-Azhar University. They all disappeared. Some of them are died. We got the information from their family members, they were killed. But, when you probably remember, every one of you, in Florida, one priest said he was going to burn one copy of Quran. Remember that? Entire Muslims went on the streets and protested and screamed. That was a one copy of Quran. That's holy to us, of course. But now we, our Muslims, are being burned. The Islamic hadith in Brotherhood says, all the Muslim Ummah, all Muslim brothers and sisters are like one body. If one part gets cut or gets sick, the entire body is supposed to react to that. But right now, the Uyghur Muslims are being amputated from that body. What happened to the reaction of our Islamic Ummah? So I don't blame the Islamic Ummah and the Muslim people, because they just don't know. They are being controlled by the Chinese disinformation and false narratives. So for us as the Muslims, as the humans, for us, we need to do our duty. We need to educate people, and then at least we can rest in peace and say, I did my part.
All right. Thanks so much. Aaron, do you want to say anything else? I think Aaron cut out. If nobody else has anything, I want to thank Rushan for joining us. This was really a fantastic presentation. So thanks everybody, and check the meeting notes, and we will be active on our Google group with more information for you going forward, and we'll see you at our next meeting.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Aaron, you got anything else?
No, I can't see my video. Anyway, I'm done.
Thank you, and bye then, I'm leaving.
All right. Bye. Aaron, you still there? I'm going to turn off the recording. Oh, can I?